Hello! I hope you liked the little countdown timer that kept pausing. So that was like the longest minute of all time. But welcome. My name's Leah. I'm the founder of Get Comfy with Money. And I'm here today with Davila. Where are you, Davila? There she is.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone. My name's Davila.
Hi, everybody. And thanks so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you all here as we explore productivity and our cycle. So who's ready? Who's ready to talk about it? I hope you all have pens and paper handy and you're ready to take lots of notes and be involved in this session. So there's going to be some action steps to take, and there's going to be a lot of amazing information that we're sharing as well. So we're really happy to have you joining us here. Please use the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. Where are you all tuning in from? I know we've got quite a few people in the UK and we have people over in Australia. So it's morning time for you, isn't it, Davila?
Yes, I'm in Sydney. So it's 7:04 and I have my coffee. So we'll get there.
We'll get there. On a Sunday morning, that's meditation.
And the baby in the background crying. Only mute afterwards.
We could leave and attend, so that's fine. So yeah, with productivity, I guess there's some things that came up for me is, I don't know about all of you, but for me, sometimes there are weeks where I feel super productive and sometimes I feel completely inadequate when it comes to focusing. And then on top of that, I'll then beat myself up for not having the capacity to do as much as I can at other parts of the month. Is this something that resonates for you? Is this something that you've experienced and maybe not necessarily connected to do with your cycle, but you know it's present? How about balance? Do you feel like you're constantly moving, like always on the go, always having to be doing lots of things, like having lots of to-dos ticked off your list for you to feel like you're productive? And have you thought about how this is potentially actually to do with your cycle and where you are in your menstrual cycle, and maybe those ebbs and flows are connected? So this is what Davila is here for, to help us to gain that insight. So can you tell us a bit about what our goal is today?
It's funny you mentioned about how you go through life not for a while not knowing why you feel these ups and downs for so long. And that was literally my life several years ago. I was so burnt out. And what we're going to go through today is how you can move away from that burnout so that you can feel more productive in your life. Essentially, by spreading out everything you have on, all your commitments, anything you have control over, into different parts of your month. And when I say month, we're talking your cycle. And we're going to explain why and where those should go. And really, too often we feel guilt and shame for when we can't produce the same results one week that we produce the week after. And the week before, and the week before that. And we're so hard on ourselves. We don't know what's going on. We feel like we've lost the passion for whatever we're working for, and we want to throw it away and just get over with it. But essentially all it is that we've just got this flow, this roller coaster ride that we live through every cycle, mostly the same. And our goal is to figure out with you and your menstrual cycle where you can redefine that meaning of productivity so that you don't feel burnout, you don't feel guilt or shame. You kind of just accept what's coming at you and move on from there. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What is it that you're passionate about in this area? Why do you do this?
I did this because I mentioned I had crazy burnout a few years ago. I worked a 9-to-5 job, and then I had other hobbies on the side. And then I also wanted to exercise a lot and eat well. And I felt like there were so many things I was trying to do to achieve wellness, whatever the term wellness meant to me. And I was actually just really fatigued and tired. And there were times I just couldn't get out of bed. I had no energy. I didn't even have my period and I had no energy. So I always assumed it was just my period that gave me low energy and that was it. And I started exploring this a bit more. And then I thought it was related to ovulating. So it's like, okay, maybe when I'm ovulating, I'm tired. Okay, what else is going on between ovulation and periods? And then I found out about the cycles. And I read the most amazing book. And I think everyone should have this book. This is where I attribute a lot of my things to, Woman Code by Alisa Vitti. And reading this book completely changed I call it my Bible now. I mean, you don't say Bible if you don't want to, but I do. And I realized that we have 4 phases of our cycle, and it completely shifted my life. I've added on more things since then, and I feel the most relaxed. And that's just because I've shifted everything in my mindset to just be kinder to myself, to move things around so that I'm not stressed and doing things that are stressful on stressful times. So really what I'm passionate about is helping everyone in the whole world, every woman that has a cycle, that is menstruating, whether it's regular or not regular, find ways to attract bigger and better opportunities, live your life and feel really empowered by giving you the structure to understand why you're feeling a certain way, giving you the tools so that you can just come back to it whenever you feel like you've kind of trailed off a bit too far away from your cycle, and teaching you how to come back to that. And it can sound woo-woo to some people, but it's literally not, because this is based on science and it's based on the varying levels of hormones in our bodies. So that's what I'm passionate about.
Awesome. So I'm passionate about working with women entrepreneurs in particular. So I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years. And when you're working for yourself, particularly, I think that is that flexibility around schedule. So for me, it's been something that's been so useful to bring into my life, because I am in charge of the ins and outs of my days, and really using the different phases of the cycle to my benefit, depending on what type of tasks I have coming up. So with me as well, I love finding new hacks or implementing new tools and ways of being that are really holistic to help me to maximize my ability to be productive within my business. And it's something that then I use and implement with my clients too. So I really am excited today for you all to gain some clarity as well, so that you can have more confidence in owning your awesome. And so you can use that power for you rather than against you, because sometimes it feels like we're battling uphill. So this is one of those things that I really think will help bring so much ease into your way of being. So once you start becoming aware, it will take a while for the cogs to start ticking, but once they do, and you have that in your mind always, you're going to find how much easier it is to streamline what you do. So just to do a little bit of housekeeping, let's call it, just to make sure everyone knows what's going on. So we're just having a really great relaxed chat today. We're going to have a few breakout type sessions where we just stop talking and let you do a bit of work, like some action steps. Nothing too crazy, don't worry. It's all going to be stuff that's already in your mind. So I just want to make sure everyone here knows to stay supportive of each other. And if you have any questions, please use the chat box on Zoom. So just put a Q in if you have a question, and put an S if you want to share something. So you don't have to have questions. It maybe you just want to share something that's going on in your life. So feel free to use the chat box for that. If you want to come up on camera, you're more than welcome to as well, if you have questions or you want to share. I have our wonderful assistant Sula here, who's waving there. She is going to be keeping an eye on the chat box, so she'll let us know if there are any questions that seem really relevant. Otherwise, we will be having a Q&A at the end, so we can leave that the bigger questions or the more specific ones until afterwards. And also one more thing, there's a little gift that we've put together for you at the end for those who stay all the way through to the end. So make sure you stay tuned in so that you can take advantage of that gift at the end of it. So I wanted to say thank you as well for showing up, because you are here because you want to do things differently or better. So good job for actually showing up and being here, putting the time in for yourself. And I hope you enjoy it as well. So is everyone ready? Everyone ready to go? Awesome. So Davila, what does it mean to live life according to your flow?
So how I interpret it is when you talk about flow, I typically don't just think about it as our period. I think about it as our entire menstrual cycle. And it's really about making decisions in your life based on when you're most capable of making those decisions, right? So sometimes, when people say, can you do X, Y, and Z? Instead of saying yes or no, say I'll think about it and figure out when's the best time for me to answer this person. If it's, especially if it's a big commitment, looking at when is the least stressful time for you. And so the way you figure that out is, especially if you're a woman who menstruates and has a regular cycle, you have a cycle that's on average about 28 days. So that's why we say a month. Mine's actually 31 days since I gave birth, which is super strange, and I forget every time, like, why is my period 3 days late? I'm actually have a longer cycle now. So we talk about it as the month. And so that's why you hear the term, it's that time of the month, because technically your period came, it's that time of the month. And so what we do know, what we've known for a long time, is that we have periods and we're ovulating. And sometimes we think when we have our period, that's the only time where a big hormonal shift is happening for us. and everything else is just crazy. Who knows what's going on in our bodies? So instead, guess what? We do know, and there are actually 4 distinct phases in that month that our bodies and our hormones are operating at very different levels, causing us to be actually very different in each of those phases when it comes to our physical capabilities, emotional, mental health, all of that shifts. So don't expect you to be the same today as you are going to be 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. So when I say living life with the flow, it's about knowing your phases. First of all, knowing when your period is, knowing when your phases start and stop as much as you can, and adjusting the parts of your life you have control over into those phases so that you're not doing anything that's high stress when you have low energy. And there's more to it, but yeah.
Awesome. Did you want to bring up the slide about hormonal changes?
Yeah, let's show you that. Sure. Just to give you a little visual.
There we go. Can everyone see that? Might have to pin it. Just let us know in the chat. Can you see that? Can you see the...
Yes, I can see that. Yeah. So with our hormones, there are 5 main hormones that play a role in our menstrual cycle, especially if you've got quite a regular menstrual cycle. It is also important to know, do not expect this to be your exact one. It's very different for all of us. Just think of this as an average. And if you're on hormonal birth control, this will look different for you as well, because technically you're not ovulating. So that's a whole different, your ebbs and flows change. But from a general point of view, we have our menstruation. So that's right in the beginning. Your hormone levels are pretty much at their lowest concentration. So this is what triggers the shedding of your uterine lining, right? That's your bleed. Then you have your follicular phase, which is day 7 through 14 after your bleeding is done. And what's actually happening is that your eggs are stored in follicles in our ovaries. And, and because our hormone levels aren't incredibly high, this one follicle stimulating hormone, which I think, follicle stimulating hormone is released, and it causes your eggs in your ovaries to mature and start getting ready for the next phase, which is the ovulation. So that process of the egg getting ready is that hormone causes an effect on our brain to be a bit more open to new things. And we'll talk about what that means, but essentially your energy is increasing. And then you go through ovulation, and this is where the hormones are I'm pretty sure they're at their peak at this time. Your energy is at this peak. And if you think about what you know about ovulating, this is technically what our bodies naturally want to do, is like have sex, reproduce, like find a mate, reproduce right now, so that we could, keep this cycle going with getting babies. But of course, we don't all want to do that all the time. So there are other ways you can use this really amazing, exciting energy, confidence into different ways. And we'll go through that. And then your last phase is your luteal phase. So this is where your hormones, they get quite high and then they start to decline all the way to your period. And this decline can be very difficult for some people. It can be also very drastic for some people. This is typically where you feel PMS. Mm-hmm. So if you think back to whenever you get the most stress in your life, think about it. Is your period about to come in the next 6, 7, however many days your luteal? My luteal phase is really long right now, which sucks, to be honest, because I want to be in energy all the time, and I'm not, because I have this longer cycle. So that's a little graph of your hormones, just to give you a visual. You can also show that if you want, you can find that, and you can talk with your gynecologist too, and they could give you a way more in-depth knowledge about this too. And if they don't know, that's interesting.
Awesome. So do you want to go into the focuses on each of the phases so that we can kind of break that down? I can do a visual. Would that be useful?
Yes, that's fun. Like a screen share of your...
Yeah. I'm going to do a little screen now from my iPad. So just bear with me while we get this heck up and running.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yes, we'll start with flow.
Okay, so now we know what our bodies are doing. Now you can understand when I say the energy levels are shifting, that's not just your physical energy, right? This affects everything, your emotional health, your mental health. So for example, there are weeks in the month where we're best at communicating and socializing, and others where we prefer to hide under a rock. So when does all that happen, right? So, sorry, I have this cough I can't get rid of. I thought coffee would help. Why would I think that? So your menstruation, that first phase, right? This is the first day bleed. That is day 1 of your cycle. Everything starts over. And because you're still in this kind of processing state, you're not really ready to action anything, this is a really good time for you to do a bit of discovery, right? Do a bit of evaluation. What's been going right? What's been going well for you? What hasn't been going well? What are some ideas you maybe want to focus on this month? Think of this as a reset. I actually love this time to reset and make a decision on what are the types of topics I kind of want to fill my brain in, and do a little bit of that review and analysis now. So for example, if we think about this from money, because I've been really focused on that lately, actually. Sometimes during my menstruation week, I spend time looking at my spending from the month before, and maybe look at how much was going out, how much was going in, are my numbers okay? Not really making any decisions yet, like not trying to make change, but just getting a feel of what's happening in my life for that particular topic. And if you're in a business, Leah, you can tell me what you've been doing, but a thought that I would have had was you're reviewing your last cycle sales number, how many people have signed on to a certain course that you're working on, analyzing if your marketing's working, anything that you can do with analyzing. And this is not just with the business. Sorry, Leah, go. I'm just like,
yeah, I was going to say, so yeah, to me, it's like restoration and evaluation are like the main words for me during that time of the phase. And I think what would be useful if we could create this visual, because I think it would be good if we could break it down visually for everyone to see the 4 different categories. So usually flow or menstruation is roughly 1 to 6 days. Is that right? So during that time?
About 1 to 6. That's just approximate. And then the next one is your follicular phase. So that would be days 7 through 14. So the length of that is 7 days, but I usually day 7 through 14. Ovulation, which is it's ovulatory is actually the phase name. And that's actually your shortest phase. So it's usually days 15 to 19. It's about 4 to 5 days for you. When people say you can get pregnant the whole month, it's not true. There's really a small window, and it's even smaller in that ovulation phase too. And then your luteal phase. So this is typically days 20 to 28 plus, however long your cycle goes for. And this could change. Like I have months where my period's only 5 days long, and so everything's kind of shifted up a bit. But this is a little overview.
Yeah, where are you now, Davila?
Honestly, so I'm still on my period, and I'm so annoyed because when we had planned this, Leah, whenever we planned this a while back, I said, this will be perfect. I'm going to be in the middle of my follicular phase. I'm going to love this. And I forgot my cycle is 31 days, and my app seems to have forgotten that too. So my period only came a few days ago, which made my luteal phase really stressful because I was like, where's my period? It should be here. I have things to do. Come on. And then everything else was going on. I had a whole terrible week last week because I'm so hard on myself, and you really shouldn't be, because it takes away from the beauty of life. And I could have just spent the whole time laughing and accepting. But I didn't.
Yeah, I'm in the peak time right now. I'm in ovulation, like literally today. So I'm communicating with all of you right now.
If any of you do know, go ahead and chat in the comment if you do know where you are. It's always fun to see the collective energy of what we pulled in.
Yeah, I would so as well.
If you don't know, we will show you how to find out later.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen with you now. You can see my beautiful, non-beautiful handwriting. So do you want to talk through our first activity? So we thought it would be a great idea to do a brain dump of all of your to-dos so that we can start figuring out the best way to separate them all out. And then we've got the 4 categories. So as Davila started speaking about the different phases and everything that happens within them, there's some key concepts that we can draw on before we start splitting them out. But Davila, do you want to talk through that first, or do you want to get them to do the brain dump first? Just try not to do information overload.
So let's do a brain dump, and if you're stuck on what type of things you want to do with it to do, we have actually my to-do list to give you an idea of how we can structure everything you've got going on in your life. And I'm not just talking about your career, your side business, your 9 to 5, your full business. I'm talking everything that your parenting, your social life. Start thinking of everything you've got going on and just jot it down. Like I suggest to jot down with numbers so you can reference them.
Yeah, so you gave us a sneaky little insight into your to-do, so thank you for that.
I feel very seen right now.
So we've got a couple of comments in the chat now. So some people are in follicular, we've got some in luteal, some in flow, follicular. So we've got a wide range of people, but pretty much every type of the cycle. We're not all synced yet. We spent enough time together, maybe we will be. So yeah, with this activity then, should we give what, say 5 minutes or so?
Yeah, I think you guys would need like 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, we'll give you 3 minutes and just jot down all of your to-dos. So don't worry about whether they are long-term or short-term at this point. Anything that's in your mind right now that you know you need to get done, jot them all down. So just take time. Doesn't have to look pretty, but as Davila said, if you number them, it will make it a bit easier for the next activity. So it doesn't have to be priority order, but just put a number next to each one. And we'll give you some time to work through those now.
Do you want to just share that to-do list again? Just because we had it really quickly. Yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
We'll share this so if you need some inspiration, but obviously it's got to be your own to-dos. All right.
You can take my to-dos and you can do them for me. That'd be great.
How's everyone doing? How are all your to-do lists going? Hello, I'm back. Has everyone had enough time? I feel like we should have some kind of formed some sort of list, unless we're doing a 12-month list here. Awesome, list done, cool. All right, so what's next, Avila?
Yeah, so we'll go through, so I'll kind of go back to what I said, where we're going to split them up. So we had your 4 phases, and there are a few focuses I like to say for each phase. So looking at your whole list, we're going to first think about your menstruation phase. So as we mentioned before, this is where your energy is the lowest. So you don't want to be expending too much. You don't want to be doing too much, and that's from everything like physical point of view, but we're going to talk mostly about productivity, so what you're working on in your life and what you're doing with your brain. So as we said, discovery, evaluate. Think of this as like your winter. So you're hibernating a bit and kind of just like thinking about everything that's happening around you. We don't give ourselves enough time to think about what's happening around our whole lives. And whenever we do that, we kind of just do it randomly. And this is a really good way to be very productive about it and dedicate this time to discover things that are happening. Do a self-analysis, maybe a bit of a course correction. If something you were doing you weren't vibing with, can you stop doing that? Can you change it? Can you shift it? Ask yourself a lot of questions in this time. So after you kind of go through that, I'll kind of jump into I won't have you break down your to-do list yet. I'm going to give you each of the different topics right now. So after you did a bit of reflection, with your winter, with your menstruation time, your follicular phase. So this is when your energy is slowly starting to come up, right? So we're getting kind of excited. Your period's done. I don't know how all of you feel, but I am so happy when my period's over. Not because I don't like my period, but it's more just, I feel so light. I feel so fresh. I feel like I'm full of so many ideas. I want to like literally start 25 businesses. I don't even start businesses. I just want to do a lot of crazy things that typically I don't do. So this is a good time to get very clear. Make a plan, right? This is a good time to figure out what are your dreams, what are your visions, what do you want to achieve in life, and also particularly this month, right? So think about this particular month. What are some things you really want to accomplish and get done before your next period comes? This is a really good time to do some blueprinting of your life, kind of outline any projects you want to start or any tasks that you have to complete, outline them, so that you kind of dump a lot of this creative energy that you have onto paper or onto something where you could access it later when you don't have that creative energy. At least you've kind of done this planning beforehand. So when we think about from a financial point of view, this is a really good time to set financial goals, kind of set targets. You can budget a bit. So look at your current, after you kind of like looked at your money last week in your menstruation, now you can start maybe creating a new budget, right? Maybe you want to put aside $200 a month to invest. Okay, what do we need to move around so that I could do that? So I could move some of my money into other accounts to save, to do something with. And so this is kind of where you set those intentions by making those plans. And you also think about this as like initiating. So you're starting a project, you're starting a task, you're starting an idea. Just get things rolling, but not at a pace that's too fast. Right? Sula, I know you've mentioned before to me that sometimes you go all in your follicular phase and you're not quite ready. Like you need to be you're going to break a bone. Literally, she always hurts herself. And so that's same with your energy, with your work too. So if I get too excited about too many things and try to do too much, I'm going to crash, right? It's not like I just have an unlimited supply of follicular energy. It's limited, and it's also based on how well I rested last week, how much I didn't do before. So that I could have this, I call it the follicular phase magic, because I find it a really great way. I feel like a queen, and I feel like it's because I'm doing less throughout my whole cycle and doing a big planning session at this time to make sure I could get shit done and still be successful.
I love it. I love follicular. Always feels so good for me. I love content creation, so I get excited when I'm back in that phase, because I'm like, yes, I can be creative again.
That's such a good point. So then the next one.
I'm interested to hear if anyone has anything they want to share or any questions. Please do let us know in the chat as well.
Oh, and you mentioned you wrote down spring there, Leah. Thanks for that. So if we go with the seasons, because our cycle is the seasons, or the 4 seasons essentially. This is where you have your spring, so your rebirth, everything, all the flowers you planted before, they are starting to grow. Little leaves are coming out. You can start getting really excited about what you want to do with these things that you've planned beforehand.
Love it.
Hi. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Ovulation, ovulatory phase. This is when you're ovulating, phase 3. So as we saw before, this is, and what we all know, this is when your body wants to get pregnant, reproduce. So essentially your body wants to, you have your libido's higher, and your libido is not always just for sex. You can harness this to do a whole bunch of other things. So this is, think about having high libido as having high confidence. So this is a really good time for you to go out there. If there have been things you have been really scared to do or really intimidated by, if you could save them for this phase, I guarantee you, you'll most likely have the best time doing these things that you typically feel shy on. So this is a really good time for you to communicate. Your communication skills are more intense now because your body wants you to go out there and meet people. So use that to have conversations with people you need to talk to. A good time to collaborate. If you've got, I do a lot of demos, I build a lot of prototypes at work. So, and I need to collaborate with others. And sometimes I don't want to talk to these people other times a month. I just want to do my own shit. But sometimes I need them. I need their input. This is a really good time for me to do like brainstorming sessions with them to come up with new ideas.
The way I like to talk about this phase as well is feedback. So I always say this is a great time to ask for feedback because you're the most confident version of yourself. So you'll be able to take feedback best at this time. Would you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree. And that's feedback from anybody, your friendships, your partner, your job as well. So think about this, not just from, asking your boss how you're doing, but you can ask your partner. And sometimes when I'm ovulating, this is when I have the deepest conversation with my partner. Because I'm like, how do you feel about this? Like, are you good? Because I'm able to take any criticism that he might have. I don't take it on so personally. I say like, oh, okay. I'm so confident in myself. Nothing can bring me down, you guys. I love this time. And that's actually the best time for me to have a very productive conversation with somebody because I'm not taking everything so personally. I can actually see outside of myself and not be so selfish. And so also for business, something I've done before is I talked about with my boss about negotiating a new raise. And I get really nervous at work to like ask for more money, which is silly because they make money and I'm an employee. I should be paid millions, but I'm not. And I get really nervous about it. But when I'm ovulating, I don't care. I'm just like, hi, I would like more money. I think I've been doing X, Y, Z. And it worked and I got a pay rise. And I don't think I would have maybe tried to do that another time of my month, but I would have felt so exhausted afterwards. I would have been on the ground, like crying and hoping and waiting for a response. But because I saved it for this time when I'm really confident, I just put it out there. And I was like, we'll see what happens. I didn't, I don't take it on so personally. And I feel so confident knowing that I'll get a reply that I like. Because I think, when you put things out there, they come for you.
Love it. Ooh, and that's summer as well. So I wrote down summer there. So that's this summer. Is like a growth phase. So usually for me, the way I like to think of it, when I'm bringing people in, that's when the growth can happen. So with initiating and the follicular phase, like we're planting those seeds and we're allowing them to start to grow. And then with collaborate, it's like, okay, well, now let's actually make it grow. So you're bringing it to life.
I love that. And if you're like me in the summertime, especially when I was living in the Northern Hemisphere where you have these distinct phases, you don't really get them that much here in Australia. Summer was just social time. You are feeling so good. You're out all the time. So think about that as well as this is where anything that involves socializing, plan all those parties on those 4 days if you can.
Those 4 days. And no one else will come because they're not on their ovulation cycle.
Well, that's another thing. The more you do this with your friends, so I've got friends here who we've synced up and we know so well, and we're a lot of we have moms and bubs, have babies, so like we've set these boundaries with each other, and we know, okay, I have my period, you're probably getting your period soon, let's touch base next week. We don't make plans for things like unless we really need to unload and talk or something, and we save a lot of our big activities, like huge playground activities, like really scary, intense playgrounds that we know the kids would love for our ovulation phase, because that's when we're most confident and most happy to deal with like the chaos that's going to come. But we will never go there when we're about to get our period. That's just how I have cycle synced my parenting based on playgrounds. Okay. Exactly.
And that last phase.
Luteal phase. So as I mentioned, this is where your hormones are starting to drop. Think of this as the typical PMS time when it might, you might be having a bit of a hard time with everything going on, and it's not your fault. It's literally your body is just starting to drop and get you ready for that period that's coming. So this is your autumn, and this is kind of where you want to start to wrap up. So whatever you are working on this cycle that you wanted to complete this cycle, this is the best time for you to just start getting that stuff done, especially if they're small tasks. If they don't take a lot of time, if they don't require other people for you to finish, they're very independent tasks. Now that you're kind of done with that big socializing phase, you can now get back, sit down on your own and start checking things off. So that could be life admin. If for Leah content creation, it might be, just editing what you've already created, making sure it looks good, the final edits and the publish, right? But you've done a lot of that creative energy before. Something I try not to do in my luteal phase is be creative, because I get really stressed out. I don't have any innovation during that time at all. I have a really hard time finding that in me. And if I have something I have to do where I have to be creative during this phase, it actually leads to a lot of anxiety for me, because I actually don't have it and I'm trying to get something I don't have. So that's why planning earlier is a really, really good time to save you from getting that that stressed out feeling of not feeling good enough, having self-doubt. All these things can creep in. So you have to make sure you're not adding things to your responsibilities during this phase that might make those feelings heightened. So
I also say, and this kind of wraps up with autumn as well, like we need to celebrate too. So there's times like we need to acknowledge what we're doing, because a lot of the time we jump over the celebration time, and autumn is very much about harvesting or reaping the rewards. So there is that feeling when you're in this phase, when you're completing lots of things, of like, oh yes, we've accomplished things, we've finished, and we're getting ready to rest and restore again in winter.
It does feel really good checking things off and being like, done, don't have to do that again.
Yeah,
I love that feeling. Yeah. So also, just to note, you still have some energy in this phase, right? You're not just hibernating right away. I kind of think of my luteal phase as two parts. Like the first half, I still have a bit of energy, which is where I can get the most done. And I could still be a little social. I could still communicate with people. I could still work with others. But there does come a time in my luteal phase where I can tell. Remember that hill we saw? It's almost like the hill starts for me. And I really do have to scale it back. So I kind of approach my luteal phase in two parts. And you'll have to, this is something I learned over the years of doing this, and you'll learn how you feel as you go through these phases, what works for you, especially one of my friends is such an introvert, and her ovulation phase, she can't do that much. Like I get my ovulation phase, I do so much, and her version's a little bit much more scaled back. So you have to look at your own life and your own limits and making sure you're staying with them and aren't overcommitting and don't have high expectations. And especially if it's something you don't typically do, go at it with ease.
Awesome. I love that. I was thinking, can we just take a little 2-minute break just to refresh? If anyone has to get a drink, go to the toilet, you can, because when you come back, we're going to dissect your to-do list into those categories. So just go take a little breather. I'm going to play that music again. I know some of you would jam into it. Before we go, Alexis has shared something. I find that the first week of my luteal phase is my best coding time. I resonate with Davila on not feeling creative. It's a time to execute, not plan for me. Yeah, that's interesting.
I totally agree. When I build my demos, I do all the planning ahead of time, and then I save for that week to do all the fixes, fix bugs, whatever. I know you know how annoying it is. You got all these issues. That's probably the best time for me to go through them and just fix stuff. If I'm creating something new, I'm stressed. I don't know. I have no vision. I have no idea what I'm trying to create. I lose sight of that. So it's good that you plan it beforehand.
Awesome. Thanks for that share. That's really good to hear. I'm thinking content creation wise for me, because that is a massive part of what I do. The luteal is the best time for scheduling, like doing doing the more automated stuff, which I know needs to be done, and I can just sit there with some Netflix on in the background, and I don't need my full attention on it because it doesn't require my full attention. So anything that's kind of more menial tasks usually fit well.
So do you want to kind of give everyone a chance to think about their own to-dos in these spaces? Like, we can show mine that I've got.
Let's just have a little quick breather, and then we'll put on some music, and then we'll jump back in together and we'll start figuring it out. We'll give you some time to work it all through, to split it all up. I'll see you in a bit. All right, that's good. A little refresh. And there was a question that just came through, which I think this could be good timing to talk about just briefly as well. Rennie says, I'm postmenopausal, and Davila, last time we spoke, you suggested syncing with the moon cycle. Maybe you want to just touch on that?
Yes. So, of course, these phases are useful for anybody. If your body's not physically going through these high-low energy changes, you can still use the moon cycle as a way to relate to. And there are, especially with my heritage, especially with my Caribbean and my Pacific Islander side, both of my families would use the moon as a way to know when the periods were coming for all the women in the village. And it was really beautiful. And we've lost that a lot because we've added so many other things that disrupt our hormones and affect what happens to us. But when you're just living that supernatural earth, land, mama life, the moon kind of defines that for you. So it's the new moon. That is that's when your menstruation is. So new moon is day 1 of your cycle. And then the full moon is your ovulating, which you can kind of make sense that way. Whenever it's a full moon, everyone's like, things are crazy. What's happening out here? It's when you're ovulating. And that's a good way to do it. And then the in-between is, I think it's new moon, then waning moon, then ovulation, then full moon, and then waxing. Yes, I always forget waxing and waning which one, but I think the main are the new and full moon. Focus as them as your middle and start point. And that's a good way. And sometimes your cycle also syncs up to the moon. Before I was pregnant, and I started cycle syncing everything. I felt so good. I felt really healthy. I found I was getting my period every time on the new moon. Like every single time it came. It was really cool. And I had that exact 28-day cycle. That's long gone now. My life's chaotic. So the only thing I have control over are these little bits, and that's what I cycle sync. So.
Okay, so should we take a look at your organized to-dos? So
yes. So we've dumped mine into the 4 phases. So what you'll do now is you'll look at your whole list, and I told you to number them, so you don't have to rewrite each to-do if you don't want to. But you take all your to-dos and then move them into these different boxes. So what requires you to evaluate a bit more? What requires you to do a little bit more analyzing? What needs you to kind of rest a bit to prepare for if you got that going on too? You can split your to-dos into different parts too, right? If I say I need to invest in a new company, that might take several parts of my cycle. So then for your initiate phase, look at what kind of needs you to just start, what needs you to be creative. Then you've got your collaborating phase. So what needs you to kind of work with other people, be a bit more social, get others involved, what needs you to have that high energy? And then what is that last phase of organizing? What needs you to organize a bit more? Your task-oriented, detailed-oriented energy. What can you dump there and you know you'll get done? So have a think about your to-dos and we'll spend, I don't know how long, Leah, how long do you want to spend going and splitting yours out?
2 or 3 minutes or so, but let's stay here just in case anyone has questions while they're splitting it up. Because I know, for example, I have one. Budgets. So when you're making a budget, would you say that that's more an initiate activity or an organizing activity?
So I actually think it's two parts. I think when you budget, there's the planning part of your budget and there's the executing part of your budget. So the planning part, doing your initiating phase, this is when you're open, right, to being more creative with where your money goes. So this is probably, if you know you've been meaning to save money for something for a while, you're more open now to do it. You don't have that like, no, you can't do it attitude coming into your head. So this is a good time to make that plan, hard code it down. And then if you're not ready to execute yet, it's a good time to wait for that organized phase. That's when you now go make sure that you set up the automatic payments, right? Or the automatic transfers into each of those accounts for you. Another thing is if you're in, so for me, for like investing, sometimes I wait for that last phase to just like do the final investment, as to, like to, or at least fund my platform with my money so that at least it's in there. I did it. It's just those quick actions. That's how you could separate it there.
Awesome. Okay, I'll just chuck on a little bit of music. So yeah, if you just all get those to-dos, like Davila said, and split them into the 4 categories, and any questions you have, just we're in the chat. How's everybody going? Could you just give us a little indication in the chat if you need more time or if you're good? If you could do a thumbs up if you're good and a stop, don't go on. Or say something if you're not quite ready, so we can move on if we're ready. But we want to make sure all your lists are done. We're good? Okay. Yeah, everyone looks ready. Let's do it. Let's move on.
Cool. All right. So now what we're going to do is think about your next cycle. So obviously that whole to-do list I dumped, no way I'd do that in 1 month. If I did that, that would be, you cannot, the whole point of cycle syncing is not just putting things into phases, but also knowing that you don't need to take on so much, just think of what's a priority. So we're going to start by thinking about when, you can even do this month if you're, so I'm on my period, so my cycles kind of already started. So I've already put my to-dos for what I want to do this month, this particular cycle. So look at when your period starts. That's day 1 of your cycle. Now, how do you find that out? So there are different tracking tools. Some people just track on Google Calendar. Cool. I think that's fine, but there are some amazing tools out there. And I might just do a little plug of 2 apps that I'm loving right now. I'll walk you 3. One is called, the one that kind of started is that Alyssa Vitti created. It's called My Flow. She goes through the 4 phases. So you plug in when your period is every month, and it'll tell you kind of about when your cycle phases are going to start, and the focus for each phase, the hormone focus, literally whole life. And that's a really good place to start. Another good place is I actually use, I have a cycle syncing tracker on my watch. So I can plug when my period starts, what my flow is like, and it lets me know what phase I'm in. So this is Garmin. So Garmin's actually got one, and there's a new one, and I'm going to plug you, Alexis, and it's called U-Cycle Sync. And so Alexis created this really awesome one for cycle syncing your nutrition with your phases, and more will come. We'll see what that's deciding. So you start with your period, and then she'll let you know where you are right now. And then it helps you make a grocery list for the types of foods you should eat to support you through that particular phase. So those are my 3 go-to apps. And we can type them in the chat too and send you a link here. I'll maybe ask Sula to do that.
Someone said, wow, what's the app called? So the first one was called, the book one from the Woman Code was called?
My Flow, MyFLO.
My Flow. And the second one you mentioned was on your Garmin?
So Garmin Connect is more for fitness kind of based stuff. And then U-Cycle Sync.
I think that's right.
Those Instagram pages too, and yeah. Sorry, Alexa, right. I know you didn't expect that, but I love it.
Thank you. We have our own expert here who's creating it as we speak. It's awesome. So it's great. I've used it too. It's really great food is an area that I really struggle with organizing. So for me, that has been a game changer. It's amazing.
Same.
Yes, the last one is an app as well, Rennie. Yes, all of them.
They're all mobile apps, and they're all Android and Apple, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I think.
Cool. Okay, so now if you know your date, or if you don't know yet, you can find out later. At least what you can do is think about each of the phases and when you want to focus on this month. So I don't know if I have a thing for this month, my to-do for this month.
Yeah, we do. Can you bring that one up?
Yes. I'll show it to you just to give you an idea of how little I'm taking on now. So you think about your menstruation. So right now, what do you want to do? It still looks like a whole bunch of work, but it's not that much. Little things. And this is how you plan it. So you plug them into the different phases, kind of like how you've just done it there, but make another chart for this month. And this is what you'll do every single cycle, if you can make the time to just organize your thoughts of what's coming for the next 28, 31 days for you. And don't overcommit. Don't put everything in your luteal phase because you feel you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff done. I guarantee you that's not going to happen. So try to just have, really clear expectations of what you can do, what you can accomplish. And remember, these are just the things you can control. There are a whole bunch of things happening in life that we have no control over. You don't know if your boss is going to schedule you in for a really intense meeting in your luteal phase. That's going to suck. So be kinder to yourself and know that maybe you might have to shift things around, remove things, move it to next cycle if you don't think you can accomplish it now.
That's a good point as well, Davila. It'd be interesting if could everyone share what they do? What's your work, or what is it that you do? Because that's a really good point. There's not a lot of flexibility in some jobs, in some roles, to change everything according to your cycle. And I know that question comes up a bit. What do we do if we don't have flexibility in our cycle, over our schedule, I should say?
Yeah, I do a few things. I have, with my job, I work for a company, and a lot of the stuff is I kind of work with customers, and I can't really tell them, sorry, I can't do that on my period. Talk to me next week. I really want to though, but I won't get there yet. There are a lot of men that I work for, and I just don't feel like doing that. But what I do is I think about the parts of my role that I have a little bit of control over, right? So that might be what I do on my lunch breaks, what I do during my breaks. What I do on my breaks might change every week. I might, on my luteal phase, I might rest in my breaks, not do anything, sit and have a tea. When I'm ovulating, I might call, video chat my sister, because I want to keep doing a little bit more. And then you think about everything else. If you are scheduling events with your friends, if you've got to move house, if you've got big projects in your home, those are things you have control over. You can cycle sync those parts of your life, especially if your job you have absolutely nothing, no control over.
Yeah, and especially if you have some flexibility in scheduling just day to day, so there may be that you're able to, if someone asks you to do a meeting, you may be able to go, well, I know in a few days I'm going to be out of my period and into follicular. You don't have to you could tell your boss, but you don't have to say that. You could just say, I'm free on Friday rather than Tuesday. So you can maybe kind of maneuver people a little if you need to.
Yeah, and if people ask you when's best, you tell them. If you don't have to tell them the day that's not best for you. And that's what I used to do. I used to think they wanted the next time that I'm available. And now I realize if they're asking, it means they're open to my dates. So I tried to schedule that. I really try to take advantage where I can. And I even started cycle syncing my parenting, which has been funny, but it's just with play. It's just I do certain play activities with her and I don't do others. And that's been just little things that make my life a little bit easier. I'm not trying to clean up paint when I'm cleaning up my blood. So we'll do painting, in 2 weeks. We'll play with crayons for now. Things like that.
There's a few comments here I just want to read out. So Lily's saying, I don't have flexibility. Sula is saying, I'm an athlete and sometimes I have to compete on my period. I love the advice you gave me about competing, Davila. And that might be something to come on to. Did you want to speak about that?
Yeah, I think exercise is a big part as well when it comes to your cycle syncing. So there are times when it might be more difficult for you, especially if you have that low energy to work, to do high intensity training. And Nike actually just got really into this, and Nike now has a program where they give you ideas for what you can work on. I think I haven't signed up yet, but I find that really exciting, and they give you workouts based on your cycle. But when you are a professional athlete, Sula, you can't really control that, right? You can't say, don't schedule that big tournament competition on my period. And this is the same thing as to go back with when you have a job you can't control. You figure out other parts of your life that you can scale it back. So if you know you're going to have to use a lot of your energy when you know you don't have it, don't plan that dinner party with your friends on that same week. Don't try to do anything else that might be more intense. Don't try to move house that same time. There's a little other parts of your life that you can control. And maybe, if you usually spend 30 minutes stretching after something, maybe this is when you do 30 minutes several times a day. You find multiple times that you can take breaks to ground yourself.
I would also say mindset is another thing to add into that, because so I know if I have a whole bunch of tasks I'm supposed to do and I don't get them done, I beat myself up about having why can't I just get them done? I should have been able to do that. And that's something we have control over as well, is kind of being kinder on yourself. So if you know that during your luteal phase, you're probably not going to be able to create or prepare that content that you want to. I keep coming back to content. It's just so easy to use as an example. But that. So rather than just sitting there going, oh, I'm useless, I'm a useless human being, you can say, okay, it's because I'm in my luteal phase that I'm not able to perform at what my 100% would be at a different type of the month.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Tatiana, what you mentioned about PCOS, which if anyone doesn't know, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. Did I get that right? I think I did. If you are interested, she touches on a lot of the hormonal changes we go through. So endometriosis, PCOS, especially because Alyssa had gone through it, and she's OBGYN. She's a gynecologist, and she like knows this stuff, and she talks about how the cycles can help you through that too, without being on the pill. Because obviously the pill was always seen as the thing to use to calm those symptoms, but she goes through some ways that you can do that with other parts of your life without the pill. So, and it's okay if your cycle's long. As I mentioned, mine's gotten longer. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means your body's going through something. There are hormones, there are changes. But you most likely, if you're not on the pill, you're going through these 4 phases. But they might be shorter or longer for you. And the only way you're going to know is you start doing this. It'll take you a while. It took me a year to actually feel it when I started being aware. It took me 1 month to get excited about it. And then it took me a year to be like, oh yeah, I'm a cycle syncer. This is my life. And then I got pregnant and that went away, and now I'm back to it. So you, just try it out. Give yourself some grace. And there are multiple areas you can start out. You can start with your to-do list, just a bit you can control. Exercise, as I mentioned, Nike has a new program. Groceries, so download Cycle Sync right after this call, and you can literally start cycle syncing your food and your nutrition. So that's it's a really exciting time. I think we spend a lot of our days listening to what society needs from us. And the reason why I think cycle syncing is important is because society is based on a 24-hour schedule of men. And that's what I learned through this book is that, and it's so true, like we're supposed to start fresh every single day. And it's a new thing and we do new projects. Yesterday's different to today. And we went so long doing that, but it doesn't really work for us when you do have these 4 cycle phases. Really, it's a 28-day cycle for you with 4 distinct up and downs. And when you take advantage of that, you might find you feel way less stress in your life and you can take on more, which is the crazy part. You can do more, but you're actually doing less. Does that make sense? If you know when to cycle sync your work.
Love it. Oh, so I had a little thought. Maybe we could do, this might be useful for somebody. Maybe we can get a volunteer and give them some guidance. You can give them some guidance in splitting up their activities that are on their to-do list for next month, just so we can show you how that works more dynamically. Is anyone willing to be a volunteer? Has anyone had a bit of struggle with splitting them up and would like some advice on what they've put together? Whoever's in first come, first serve. Davila's amazing, so she can give you some great advice. Oh yeah, thank you, Alexis, for putting the title of the book and the author as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, she's saying she talks about how she's supposed to support how she supported her cycle to put her symptoms into remission. That's amazing. Alexis, you are our volunteer. So would you like to come up? You can unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having this. It's been actually really good.
Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to screen share so I can start jotting down a couple of notes on your on what you say. So you can just talk with Davila, and I'll map it all out here for you.
Okay. So I'm actually on day 3 of my follicular phase. And I actually need to sit down and really plan what this cycle looks like. This is actually really good because it's helping me sit down and do what I should have done earlier on. So one of the first things I have on my to-do list is to create my Instagram post for the cycle and kind of plan when they will be released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
that's a very follicular project.
Totally. Create all of that energy now, all your ideas, jot it down.
Exactly. I'm looking to revamp the CycleSync app, and I would like to just do a little mock-up of what I envision the revamp to look like. So I'm going to do that in the follicular phase as well, and then start coding the design of it. I tend to code the framework of stuff in this phase and then do the heavy lifting in the ovulatory and the luteal phase.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like add functionality, fix some buttons later.
Fix it to the back end, all of those stuff later on.
not writing the right terms, but you know what I'm saying.
I'm sure she wrote them too. Yeah, but this is nice.
Yeah.
I love this.
I also need to speak to a few menstrual cycle coaches and people in this space. And I'm an introverted person, so like I'm not the most active in my ovulatory phase. Like I find that to be, it's okay, but I thrive a lot better in my lethal phase when it's just me on my laptop.
On your own. Yep. But do you find that you can do a little bit in your ovulation phase? Like that's
I feel like my ovulation phase is the best time. If I was to like have meetings with people in my lethal phase, I'll literally be like, "Why are you trying to kill me?"
That's good to know. Yes.
Actually, one thing I really think it's actually really good. I use Calendly, and it helps me kind of just like block time away that I don't want to have meetings with people, and then I can just send one link and be like, "This is the time I'm available," and only in
do you update it? So when you know your next cycle, do you update it?
It's annoying that you can't like have like a whole month's view. It's like repeated every week as the same availability. So I have to go in every week and like cancel some dates and be like, I'm not available.
Calendly needs like a integration with your cycle syncing app.
It really does. And like I can stand this.
They would need that. That would be amazing.
And yeah, that's all I have for this phase.
Cool. I think that's a lot. That's a lot. When you're building a new app, that's going to take up your whole month. It's your app.
Yeah.
Your whole life. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing. That was great. How's everyone else feeling? How are you feeling now that you know how to sync to your cycle? Is this something you've heard about before, or is this been completely brand new and you're like, what? What have I just let myself in for? And then I guess, Davila, what are the next steps? So what do you say you do once you've mapped out your first month? Do you have any other tips for things that people should start doing other than like just being more aware? What would you say that is the next step?
Oh, share this information. Share this information with the people you know, people you spend the most time with. When I discovered this, I was in my husband's ear nonstop. This is what phase I'm in. This is what I need to do. This is what phase I'm in. Even the MyFlow app, I think it sends your partner, it syncs to your partner. So they send you an email. So Jason would get emails like, Davila is in her ovulation. Blah, 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 blah. You know, not just about, it would say like food focus, you know, don't talk about this with her, talk about this with her. And it's, and you can just talk to your friends about it as well. Talk about it a lot, because I think the more people you involve together, you can cycle sync, and all of your lives collectively get easier, and you kind of be each other's accountability partners too. So with everyone that I talk to about this, we always ask, what phase are you in? Oh, cool. No wonder you're going through that. Do you think that maybe you're in your luteal phase? Why are you scheduling a wedding? You know, that's crazy, girl. It's just a nice way to help each other out if you can.
Love it. And I am very organized, like, so calendar, I use Calendly as well, and I love that. And in my calendar, my Google Calendar, I start mapping my month ahead, so I know what phase of the cycle I'm in. So when I first started, it was just building that awareness of starting to, rather than going, why do I feel like this at this time? It was like, oh, I feel like this because of the time of the month I'm in. And then it shifted to kind of being more planning ahead. So going, rather than reacting in the moment, it was, oh, next week I'm going to be like that. So I can plan ahead for that. So I'm more in the planning stage. So I have found it really useful, because I'm a visual person, to look at my calendar each month and say, oh yeah, I know that those days are going to be great for this. Got a couple of little messages in here as well that I'd love to share. So Tatiana saying, thanks for the tips. We'll read that one next, as in the book. I'm reading How the Pill Changes Everything by Sarah E. Hill. It seems good. That sounds good too. I'm interested to check that out. Sula's saying, I started speaking to the guys I train with, and they are so sweet, and now they understand better when they can push me harder in training and when they can be more gentle, or when they should be.
I love that. That's so important. I love that you do that, Sula, because I think people are afraid to involve men, but I think men should know this stuff when we're learning about periods, when we're, 10, 11, I think men should be part of those conversations too.
Absolutely. Especially because they are going to be privy to all of the good and the bad moods and things that we go through. It's not isolated. We're surrounded by them.
It actually feels, you know how sometimes my husband sometimes will be like, I don't know what's going on with you. You're so crazy. Now this gives him an idea. So like sometimes we can't express like why we have these ups and downs, but now they can feel some kind of structure. Like men need structure. They can't just like flow like we flow. We're just like, whoa. They need to know like exactly what's happening. And this is not every man. I'm talking about like cisgendered men, specifically my husband. So everyone's different.
Amazing. So Davila, to finish up, before we open up for a Q&A, is there an offer that if people want to know more, what do they do?
Yeah, well, I'm offering one-on-one sessions. So I've been doing those, and you can come and we can have a video chat and we talk about your specific goals. So a little bit similar to today, but we kind of extend it into further into your life and kind of dive deep. But if you want to figure out if that's something you want from me, I'm offering just free 15-minute chats. So I just think we'll post the link. My baby's back from her walk, so you'll hear her in the background.
Okay.
So I'm 15 minutes intro to discuss, you know, if I'm the right fit for you and if you want to go forward and feel less stressed and stay productive with me.
Lovely. Yes, I've just put a link in the group. Feel free to click on it. So I also offer sessions. So if you're interested in the productivity side, specifically related to business management or trying to balance your personal and business finances, so that's my area of expertise, and all sorts of productivity hacks. This type of, I do a bit of cycle syncing, and I also do a broad range of other things. So if you're looking for more business coaching, then do get in touch with me. I also offer a free strategy call to find out what your wants and needs are. So please do have a look on that form and do get in touch with us if you're interested in booking. We've both put our Calendly links up there, so that led nicely into that. You're okay there, Davila?
My baby, she was just banging on the door. I was going to bring her in, but she's crazy, so.
That's all right. And so does anybody else have any other questions? There's a couple more things saying. So Alexis is saying, Fit Our Women in this is an app dedicated to helping coaches train their athletes in a way that supports their cycle. And so I was very excited to hear about that. Yes, that sounds
I want to get, it's just called Women. Women.
Awesome. Yeah, so anything else? Honestly, shares are so lovely. It would be really nice to hear if anyone has anything that they would like to share about how they feel at the end of this session. It's always really nice to hear what the biggest takeaways have been. You can share them on video or you can just share them in the chat. So if you're shy or you're in your pajamas, that's fine. You don't have to come on camera. But please do share your biggest takeaway from today. And also I'm going to post a link, which is the little gift that I promised for those who stayed all the way through. Which, wow, Sula's so speedy. She did it way before me. I didn't even get to paste. So that's our downloadable worksheet. So that's everything we've gone over. It's the worksheet version, so you can use that yourself. So you can either print it out, or if you use an iPad with a pen, you can digitally write on it. But that just gives you that structure we've gone through. So if you need to use it to plan future months, you can. And Davila, is there anything else that you want to say?
Nothing other than just thank you all for taking the time to learn this about yourself. And even if you feel like it's not necessarily working perfectly for you, share it with other people in your life. You never know who else you have, your sister, your mom, your best friends, anyone who will find this information really helpful. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
If the whole world cycle synced, oh my God, I feel like war would never happen again. There'd be no war. There'd be no,
it would only be population. We'd all be trooping together. Tatiana saying, my reception's awful. Sometimes I can't hear you guys. Oh no, but this discussion set the spark. We need the discussion and to share this. So the link exists on YouTube. So I will post the link in the WhatsApp chat. And that chat's also going to be open for the next 20 or so minutes. So if you have any other questions, feel free. You'll be able to write in that chat. So if you want to ask anything else, I'll be just attending to that. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you more, and I'm really happy you all joined us today. So thank you. Thanks for taking your Saturday evening to learn more about cycle thinking. Cycle thinking. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.